I want to come back to something that you brought up earlier with another cliche that we've got here. This one, I have to admit, the framing of it comes from super producer John Gennaro, and I love it. It's the Aisha Curry quote, "I've lost all respect. Sorry, this is absolutely rigged for money or ratings. I'm not sure. I won't be silent. Just saw it live. Sorry." I'm not sure that's a cliche, but it is certainly a notable quote. Players and teams complaining too much about the refs. You mentioned earlier the conversation stemming from both Lakers, Nuggets, and Knicks, Sixers. I didn't see the Lakers Nuggets game live, so maybe you can tell me, like, how valid do you think their point of view coming out after the game was here? I know that both, D'Angelo Russell had comments and Anthony Davis had comments. LeBron dropped the mic about it. From where you were sitting in that lovely sports bar watching, how much of a case do you think that they had about that?
So dropping the mic, that's an interesting point. I think in both press conferences with Darvin Ham and with LeBron, neither of them were actually asked about the referees, but they brought up the referees on their own accord. With that LeBron one, it wasn't necessarily drop the mic. He knew it was going to be the last question. You could hear it from the PR saying it. So he made sure he added it on top of whatever the last question was.
Okay.
And the fact that it wasn't a question that was asked only speaks to me about the fact that it wasn't that big of a story. It wasn't like this. It wasn't the first, second, or third reason that the Lakers lost. It was one play. I think from the NBA's perspective, to have a replay review be that egregious, to have, the refs look bad on 3D from multiple angles is a more interesting story. Because, it does get to the point of it was a bad call. And why do you have replay review if you are going to overturn things that were just blatantly obvious? I mean, D'Angelo Russell did get hit in the face. At the same time, the Lakers had a 20-point lead in the third quarter. They had a 10-point lead going into the fourth quarter. They should have won that game. I'm still, frankly, trying to understand how they didn't win that game. You had Anthony Davis have the offensive performance of his life. You had LeBron James taking over in the fourth quarter. You had D'Angelo Russell opening the game with 3 made triples and, just him finding his rhythm. You had a bad Jamal Murray shooting game. You had a third quarter where even as the Nuggets are making a comeback and you're watching it sort of happen like a slow motion car crash and you're just wishing Darvin Ham would just do something finally. And he, in classic Darvin Ham fashion, kind of doesn't, is just the Nuggets through that stretch. They're missing a ton of wide open threes or open threes that are just rimming out. The Nuggets don't do that on a consistent basis. You don't have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Jamal Murray missing all of their threes on a consistent basis. And then to take it back to the refereeing issue, you had, with 57 seconds left in the game, Jamal Murray gets free throws on LeBron on a pretty questionable call. It could have gone either way. I think, LeBron kind of shoved him a little bit, but it was, if we're having the type of night where that call on D'Angelo Russell can get overturned, maybe you use one of your 2 timeouts to challenge the call if you are that upset about the refereeing. Like, you did have control over that situation in that particular moment. So, yeah, I mean, the refs, yeah, there's bad call. I think the Sixers have a lot more reason, a lot more justification to be upset. I don't see it from the Lakers side. It felt like skirting accountability to me, frankly.
And, at a certain point, if you're like, when you have the facts, you bang the facts, and when you don't have the facts, you bang the table a little bit. Like the idea of, you reach a point where it's 10 straight to this same team. You were in the exact situation to be able to come out on top of that, where you have the great start and the great, you build up the big lead and then just get walked down. And there is a certain level, I'm a Anthony Davis defense respecter. I had him on my defensive player of the year ballot this year. Much to the chagrin of all of South Texas, which I was like, oh, it's nice to have the Spurs fans back. Good. All right. I haven't talked to you guys in a little while. You are not thrilled with me. But then to have it go from that to the story he talks to Dave McMenamin at ESPN, and it's like, I'm never going to get it. They don't like me. It's just, this is what it is. And then the immediate aftermath of it is 27, 20, and 10 for Jokic. And then at the final possession of the game, Murray over the top of him, where it's like, all right, maybe this is a not so much karmic balance, but a little bit of like, I don't know. If you don't have the answers for that, then maybe don't pipe up about how you deserve more. I don't know. But it's a difficult set of circumstances, and it's certainly where they go in Game 3. I'll be fascinated to find out. The Sixers' point of it, as you mentioned, they have a maybe more valid gripe, and they're certainly going to raise it. We found out last night. I think Tim Bontemps was the first to put it out there that the Sixers intend to file a complaint with the NBA about the officiating Games 1 and 2 of the series. File a grievance. He firmly officially termed a grievance. According to a team spokesperson, Kyle Neubeck at, I don't know how to pronounce it, PHLY, Philly Sports, all Philly Sports, the All City Network, the Philly one. Kyle, shouts out to you. Good to see you this weekend. The laundry list of concerns they want to present to the league include, but are not limited to, the Sixers being disadvantaged by 2 calls in the last 2 minutes report from Game 1. Incorrect no call on a foul by Mitchell Robinson. Incorrect no call on a traveling violation on Jalen Brunson. Nick Nurse calling for a timeout twice and not getting it. And, he talked about that after the game. Joel Embiid was very adamant. Everybody on the floor in a Sixers uniform was calling for a timeout. They didn't get one. And this is the one that makes you sort of cringe a little bit. Quote, this is from Kyle Neubeck's story. The Sixers have been the most disadvantaged team in the last 2-minute report this season. A report compiled in early April showed that the Sixers had been disadvantaged on 22 calls in these reports during the regular season compared to 11 such errors going against opposing teams, the worst such ratio in the NBA. This all has sort of big Daryl Morey energy, which I don't love. Again, Daryl Morey respecter generally here, but there always seems to be an audit when the team doesn't win the game. And I think you could certainly make a legitimate argument. There could have been fouls called on the inbounds pass with Tyrese Maxey last night. Tyrese Maxey took the high road the entire way, by the way, and the presser was just like, I got to be better. I can't lose the ball. I got to hold on to it. I tried to grab it, tried my best. I got to be better. Everybody else was like, he got hacked. The timeout, that's another one of those, like, depending on which frame of the replay you pause on, is the ball in his hands? Is Nick Nurse actually making the signal? Did he try to put his hands together and then not? Should he have run out onto the court to get attention? Whatever. Which lens you view that through probably depends on which laundry you're rooting for. But I would say, generally speaking, if the outcome of this is we lost a 5-point lead in 30 seconds and it's the ref's fault, I think that's a kind of a tough pill to swallow. And then you're filing a grievance to what end? I don't know. Like, I think that there's a reasonable argument to be made there, but I just don't know where it goes. Like for what, for who at this point?
It all has to be gamesmanship at this point. Like, you're not going to overturn the result of a playoff game.
Yeah, it's not like the grievance is going to be like, actually, now it's 1-1. Good job.
Right, exactly. I think it's all for the future. I think it's all, and I think the same thing goes for the Lakers too. Like, I think we're going to see a couple of Game 3s coming up here where the home team shoots 24 to 25 free throws at least. And we are going to see a game plan where LeBron James is taking it at the rim. Joel Embiid is taking it at the rim. Anthony Davis is taking it at the rim. We might see some early foul trouble for certain Knicks players, certain Denver players. It's all about the future to me. I think, yes, the way that the Sixers went about it was very, very dramatic. It felt like, they had like Deloitte on register for this. Like they had somebody helping them out. But yeah, the other thing too with that game is, I hate to say this as a Kyle Lowry stan, you're the oldest player in that situation. You're the one inbounding the ball. I do think Nick Nurse tried to get a timeout before Kyle inbounded the ball too, which is the one that I think there's a more justification for. Once the ball was inbounds, you don't really like this. They didn't have possession to me, in my opinion. Yeah, he was probably hit, but that's also not really something you can litigate in the moment. If you don't have possession, you don't have possession. I needed the timeout there. You also had Joel Embiid pretty open on that play while Maxey's getting chased by 2 guys as well. And you also, I just think you need to have an anchor. You need to have an anchor in moments like that. Like, there are certain teams, like you always see, like the Nuggets, for example, they don't lose on those types of plays because worst case scenario, Jokic just posts somebody up 10 feet from the rim and makes it an easy catch, and you have a guy in Joel Embiid who can do that for you. And frankly, like this is postseason basketball. You need to execute on the fly, and there's no going back. You know, like you have to live with these moments and you have to move on. You just have to be better the next game.
It's so Embiid is. I'm realizing the more I watch him live, it's almost impossible to tell how damaged he is and at what percentile he is operating, because he was dragging that left leg around the entire second half. He, our friend Tom Haberstroh had noted, like, I think there was like 7 or 8 straight possessions where he didn't even get inside the 3-point line because he just, could not get it going. And then, there's moments where he's Euro stepping and taking contact and getting or diving for a loose ball to save possession. And he puts up 34 and 10. And he still is like a force field around the rim. And then you get into the post-game press conference and he's like, it's ice bags everywhere. And his head is down with dark sunglasses on. And you're like, I don't know if you are figuring out what exactly he's able to do, right? Like where you can forgive and say like, well, maybe he's not boxing out Hartenstein or being that post up and saying, get it to me because he's worried about the leg or he can't really move around that much. It's like, yeah, but this is this is when you have to be able to do that stuff. And if you can't do it, then you can't be out there. But then if he's not out there, then they have no shot. So it's a lot going on for sure. And it's being, I think, hanging it on calls at the end misses a larger context. But I also, like, if I was a Sixers fan watching the game, or if I was on the Sixers bench watching that game and watching the way it wrapped up, I would certainly understand the frustration and maybe want somebody to file a grievance on my behalf.
Yeah, you get it. And you also could kind of feel, I think, when he fell in game 1, too, and his eye was twitching, and you could feel like maybe he was tearing up. Can't say that 100% for sure, but also after that game too, I feel like you can start to just feel how much the weight of his history with the Sixers is just starting. It feels like it's starting to crush him a little bit. It feels like the injuries, and everything else that's happened on the Sixers team that has had, like, I just started thinking about it last night, like you have the Ben Simmons game 7, you have the Kawhi shot, and then you also have a Jalen Brunson shot that, hits the front of the rim and goes in, and it's just like, God, do you really, really need to like bring back war flashbacks in a moment like this at the same time?
Former Devine Intervention guest and stand-up comedian Josh Gondelman called that the acoustic cover of the Kawhi shot. Just like the one bounce all the way up and then coming down through. Yeah, absolutely brutal. And like, every fan base and every franchise is its own unique special snowflake, but there's nobody that's got the kind of the laundry list of trauma, the medical jacket, the specific unique weirdnesses that the Sixers do. And so much of it has sort of persisted throughout Embiid's career. It's wild.